Not Chris being combative and emotional at the very same time. This y'all king? Girl, let's talk about Ready to Love. Hello, hello, beautiful people, and welcome back. We are on episode 10 of season 8 of Ready to Love. Raise your hand if you're ready for this for this ride to be over. Uh anyway, nonetheless, we are back at this Freddy Krueger campsite summer camp, finishing this public stoning of Jessica versus Sierra. And Marie's still up front. We got the dramatic music going. Why they keep doing this dramatic Fast and Furious music with this public elimination, which y'all know from my last review, I hate public eliminations. Anyway, we scan the crowd. And why is Chris and Quentin dressed like every football player you ever saw in college that was eating early in the calf? When I tell you the pajamas are hilarious. So Sierra is standing there pretty much waiting to be eliminated. As we know, Sierra was ready to go. They do their whole dramatics with the music, and Marie says that the guys think that Sierra is not ready to love. We knew this. Sierra was waiting to be let free. Honey, when I tell you, when they let Sierra go, she literally said, "Thank God." That's when you know that that's really that lady's time to exit, not just for the show, but her. I'm actually sad to see Sierra go. Her energy was so fun and effervescent. And I just feel like we needed that still on the show. I know she wouldn't have found a match, but I would have preferred Sierra over Kat on this trip for the remainder of the trip, to be honest. She was fun, bubbly. She kept the energy positive for the most part, and she could always crack a joke. And she didn't really give a fuck. And I mess with that. Word on the street is Sierra wanted to leave by the hold down, honey. And really, she didn't want to be on the show as long as she was. And I really feel like they gave her a relief when they eliminated her, and she was ready to go. And they just kept her on there because she was fun. She was a good time, and they needed to keep the show going. But that lady wanted to go way more before that. Sierra walks off, skipping in the wind, honey. When I tell you freedom, Tommy says to the group that this week or this next part of the trip, or this last part of the trip rather, is all about alignment and getting closer to your connections. Again, I am wondering, why is Kat here? She has no connections. It's clear they just have this 5-4 thing based on, I guess, the voting situation, which always makes it awkward because you know that the connections are going to be inauthentic with the extra random person that's there as like the fifth wheel. Power of elimination is with the ladies tonight, and they head back into the house. So, child, they head back into the house for this random ass, group meeting. I don't even know why everybody was still linked up. I feel like Aries and Phil should have went over and had a good old time hanging out with each other again, but they decide to get together on these couches to have a chit chat. And when they're sitting down, Janelle wants to know, and I guess when they're sitting down, and Chris asks Marie if he's okay. And Janelle says, well, hey, why are you checking on Mario? And Jessica was the one that almost got sent home. There was nothing, that he went through. He simply was up there with Tommy, about to proceed over a wedding. Honey, I don't know. It just was a weird setup the way it was all done. And so she says that, why don't you really be checking, or anybody really checking on Jessica? Because she was the one that was almost eliminated, and she was called combative in the process, and it's throwing her off. And y'all want all this feminine energy, masculine energy conversations. So why aren't you checking on her feminine energy side to see how she's feeling about that situation? Mari asked Jessica how she's feeling, and she says she thinks it's best that she just stay quiet, because she has combative energy, so she doesn't want to go into it. Again, I don't understand why the group stayed. I know I would have walked my ass off and went to go get some waffles. I'm not fitting to have this group conversation. I think that what there could have been I guess a larger conversation about it, but honestly, everybody know who said it. I mean, even the men didn't even protect Chris in that moment. As you can see, as we're going through. So Janelle asked the question as to why she was, disturbed that Black men felt the need to feel comfortable using the word combative to describe Jessica. Immediately, all the men say that they didn't say anything. I mean, Phil was like, look, I never said that because I never had that experience with her. Marie kind of is walking off, but he's saying, I never said it. Quentin saying he never said it. And then Chris, ironically, also says he never said it. They then proceed to play a clip of Chris, in fact, saying it. So he sat there and lied. Phil and Marie basically said that there was no agreement on the verbiage, that, Marie said that word, but there was no agreement on the verbiage as far as all the men saying that this was their experience. Phil has not experienced Jessica this way, as we know, because I didn't have a connection like early on. There was no beef or anything like that. He didn't have an unpleasant experience with her. He was just more into Aries. Him and Aries have been more into each other than anybody else. And there's no drama there. He hasn't experienced her in a negative fashion. Quentin hasn't experienced her in a negative fashion. There is no connection there, and he is into Janelle. Marie has experienced Jessica in a positive fashion for the most part because she's still one of his connections. We know that they talk all the time. So the combative energy, I never got that from him. And even when he met with her friends, he expressed that, Jessica, while she's a cool woman, she has different sides to her. Like every woman has complexity to her. And he said that he doesn't mind that she's a strong individual because he's a strong person and he's not looking for anybody that's super weak. I don't think anybody is, honey. And he didn't ever say that she wasn't feminine, which I found to be very interesting because I didn't get that from any of the guys as well. So it's only one person that's been making these comments, and it's Chris, except Chris is not owning up to what he said. Janelle says that she will deal with whomever later. Girl, ain't nobody scared of you. Jessica asks who said it, because at this point she is frustrated. It actually is dealing with Jessica, and I think that's what it should have been verbal. But I understand that Janelle was trying to come to defense of her friend to find out what was going on, but it gave witch hunt energy. Although I will say this, witch hunt or not, if you're going to describe somebody a certain way, or if you're using certain words to describe an experience and you've planted that with other people, you need to stand on your own too and speak up. I appreciate that Tommy also identified that at the end when he mentioned that as a man, you know what I'm saying, when you say something, he co-signed and agreed with Jessica, that you stand up in your words, stand on your 10 toes and say, I'm the person that brought this up. Then I feel like Chris and Jessica could have had a side conversation. But the fact that Chris lied or tried to imply that it doesn't matter who said it, it was you, sir. Be honest about the fact that you were the one that made the comment, and that these other men are eliminating themselves from the situation because they damn near threw Chris under the bus. They said they didn't, but when I tell you they rolled that bus right all over him to say like, hey, we didn't say that. We didn't even agree with that because we all didn't have the same experience with you. Marie leaves the room and he says he feels like he should have just stepped up. Chris should have stepped up, and he was disappointed in the fact that Chris didn't step up, as am I. Phil said it wasn't him and that Jessica feels like that isn't how, she treated folks because they haven't all had this experience with her. They haven't given her an impression that they had that experience with her. And no other man addressed Jessica not being a connection for them as her not being soft or being feminine or being combative. And that is why this thing is so troubling. I don't have a problem with people using adjectives to describe people based off of what they have. I do understand the collective situation that goes on when Black women get labeled for being passionate or having passionate discussions or just being as gregarious as anybody else, as combative. To me, what I have a problem with Chris, with him using this, is that Chris hasn't given us any examples of her being combative. He keeps using that word and he's not giving examples. And that's disturbing to me because Chris works in corporate America. So even if he works as an architect, I think, or some type of builder, I don't know his exact job title, or a developer, you have to be able to communicate effectively with people in development, or else you can really screw up a project. So I know that he knows how to use his words. And I heard like from other stuff, and I think I've even seen some online content where he was like trying to combat, haha. He was trying to combat the narrative around this, saying that he just was so confused. That's BS. You don't get an award at your job because you're confused. You know how to use your words. You were clear about what you were saying. And to me, what's disturbing is that we know he's a misogynist, and we know that he's using that word as a balance to say like, oh, no man would want to be with somebody that's combative. But is she combative, or does she just not always agree with everything that you say? We know that he has an energy around servitude and an attitude around the idea that women can't be a leader. Again, I don't understand how any woman in her right mind who's the CEO, who owns her own company, and that includes Lee, would want to be with somebody who thinks that you're not competent enough or too emotional to be able to lead projects. girl, what the self-esteem is not self-esteeming. Regardless of how you're saying you feel, why would you want to be with anybody who would think that the woman could be less than when it came to a position of leadership? You own your own business. I don't understand, but I do think that it was worthy of a discussion. I do think that when you make comments and you're making it seem as if the group, co-signed it, and this is a little bit about Marie's word choice as well, then you need to like stand up in that situation. And I just don't think like, they feel like they did that. When we go back to the experiences on elimination, Habibi several of the women had experienced Habibi the exact same way. And so some worse than others, but when he was eliminated, the adjectives that were used were things that all of the women sort of described and co-signed with. In this instance, that just wasn't the case. Chris says it's not important. They end off the day and we move on. Or at least we thought we did. So Kat walks into the guys' room after everything has subsided. I don't believe that she stayed for the meeting that they had in the living room. Cool, cool, cool. Again, I don't really understand the purpose of her being here except for the numbers game. So I don't really get the green screen comment. It's clear within the green screen comment she has an issue with Jessica that has nothing to do with the men. Saying that why can't they use the word combative if that's what they experience with you, knowing that there is some issue around the adjective. And if you feel that way, why don't you also feel that Chris should have stood up in what he said? So you don't care that Chris used the word combative. Why can't he use that as an adjective? But you also don't care that he lied about using the word. So it's just giving, at this point, people are on their own individual alliances and they see what they want to see. Kat walks into the room. She says that the bedroom is cute, that they got bunk beds, all that good stuff. She says that they have to stay. Why do they have to stay away for the words if it's true? She asks Maury how he's feeling. Again, I feel like the reason that the word needed to be stayed away from, and this is partially Chris and also his Marie's fault, is because everybody didn't experience her that way. And we are acting like we're naive about how attachment of words can do damage. And I appreciate Jessica sort of describing how this does work. We know that we see this all the time. Just because you simply disagree with someone, it doesn't mean that is turning into the same thing, i.e. when somebody says that you're difficult to work with because they've experienced you that way, right? But we also know the damage of difficult to work with can do, especially when you attach it to people of color. We've seen it happen in Hollywood. We've seen it happen in other situations where that will get around, and it's really a dog whistle for don't mess with that person. Da, 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 da. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it ends up being. And so it's not about being able to use the word combative, but the fact that he also kept using the word combative without giving details about what was combative is what I also have a problem with. And Chris was the only one that said it. So why not just own up to it? Why let that be the onus that the group has on the situation? All of the women would have owned up to the fact that Habibi was rude or did different things when it was described. When, Marie was the person that mentioned the Kira situation about the whole race relations thing, only him and Quentin had experienced her, from what I understand, in that way. Marie with the whole, Black community connection, and Quentin with the Do You Date White Girls connection. Both were standing 10 toes down in the men's lounge, but ultimately would have said that. When Marie brought up the racial component, he stood on 10 toes down when he talked to Kira at the ice cream shop about him feeling like the connections to the community wasn't there. She knew it came from Marie, and Marie never denied it came from him. So it is what it is. Jessica and Janelle are outside talking over ice. Honey, I don't know what was going on. Cracking on ice is bad for your teeth. I used to have that same issue. I know sometimes you have low iron, girl, but I remember them days when I tell you my dentist almost strangled me. Like, what are you doing? So please, ladies, don't do the ice. Fellas, don't do the ice. Like, leave it alone with the cracking on the teeth. But I know people who have low iron do that sometimes, or sometimes if you're pregnant. But either way, honey, don't do it. Don't do it. The dentist can be angry with you. Janelle says that she hates that Chris wasn't honest, and Jessica feels like she doesn't trust Maurier because she feels like he should have handled it better in terms of how he articulated himself, but also that he walked off when they were all having the conversation. We go back into the bedroom and Q asks Maurier how is he feeling, and he says, he's disappointed in how the exchange went, and he knows that Jessica's probably hurt from the situation, and he cares about her. She's one of his connections, and that's why she's still there. Phil says that sometimes a word can come across like a left hook when your guard is down. And I appreciated Phil for saying that, because I feel like that really articulated how Jessica felt in that moment. She was up for elimination, and out of the blue, this word hits that she hasn't heard before from any of the men that she's had a connection with. And it definitely threw her for a loop. And I think that that's where her feeling was around it. I think the other energy that transpired around it also made it hard. But like Phil said, it's like a left hook. It threw you because you're like, wait a minute, I have a good connection with Marie. We don't have any issues. I don't have a bad relationship with Q. And I know I don't have a bad relationship with Phil. So where could this be coming from? It just throws you off when you're saying that that's what the group said. Um, I love this experience with the men, especially when it was just them in the room. I love how they were counseling Mario and speaking life into him, into the situation, and saying, bro, you got to kind of get it together. Y'all got to kind of work it out. You like this woman, you need to figure out the situation. I really enjoyed the conversation between them. It was very mature and very cool. Mario does want to have a conversation with Jessica. Janelle also feels like Jessica owes him that conversation. She owes him the ability to be able to explain himself in the context in which he was saying. I appreciate that she gave her the advice that she wants to do it. Jessica says she doesn't want to have the conversation. And again, you can see within this like fishing episode, we have the guys go out. Everybody's in change clothes now. Mario found his socks, child. The guys go out to fish. I actually wanted the fishing scene to just be the men, because at first it was just Chris and Q and Phil. And then they was like, where's Mario? And then Mario eventually walks out. I really thought it was just going to be the fellas. And I actually wanted to see more time with the men. I love seeing them bond on the show. And I think we haven't really seen that in previous Ready to Love seasons. A lot of times we see the women get together, or we see the couples always being together, and we don't really get the chance to see the men have conversations. And I've been enjoying the conversations from this particular cast. So I was disappointed that a lot of the conversation was um surrounded around this. But the men go to fish. It's clear that a lot of them haven't fished in a very long time. So that was kind of hilarious to see. It looks like Marie is the only one that's kind of gone fishing recently. A lot of them have had experiences fishing, but they haven't done it since they were in their 20s. And a lot of these men, it's just 10 years, 15 years later that they're now, doing this again. So they kind of struggle with it. Marie's kind of trying to show them what to do a little bit. And then 3 of the women walk out, which is Aries, Kat, and Lee. And I'm going to say the first alliance, because it's clear that this group has now broken up into alliances. There are 3 women that are aligned. There are 2 women that are aligned. It's an alliance on both ends. I don't see any one person having it over the other. Nobody's really innocent in this situation. People are just playing down the numbers game. And that's another thing that frustrates me about Ready to Love, because honestly, I don't see a connection with most of these people. To be honest, the only people I see connections with, honest, are Aries and Phil, and Janelle and Quentin. It just doesn't make sense for these other folks to be here. They're just stretching out this show to give us 13 episodes. Nobody else really has I would think, a connection that is romantic. It's more so them just trying to fit everybody into this. We got to have more people on the show, because even what they showed us for next week is going to be some BS. There are no other connections that are valid, in my opinion. The fishing was boring. The groups are divided. They're talking for a bit. Quentin gets the hang of everything. He finally catches a fish. I think nobody else caught one. He asked Phil to take it off the reel. Phil's like, I'm not doing that. So Lee proceeds to take it off of the reel. And then um, maybe 5 minutes later, Janelle comes out of the house in that same dress. Janelle, take that dress off. You can dress. We know that you can dress. You've been doing it for years and years and years and years online. Girl, what the hell are you doing with that dress on? I wanted to burn that dress so bad, y'all. It just gave Grandma Moo Moo. I didn't love it. I know it's a sunny dress, it's a summer dress, but it did nothing. You know what I mean? And I don't think she needed to have a tight dress on or anything, but I was tired of seeing that damn dress. Do you understand me? It was annoying. She yells, "Bae!" And it was just like, girl, what are we doing? I don't know what she saw from the kitchen or whatever, but it's just, I'm drained with this energy of this thing. And I also hate this dress. I don't think in this moment she was really interrupting a connection with Lee, because I don't think Lee and Q have a connection. Q dismissed Kat early on and said, I got a woman, essentially, at the house. If he wanted to get with Lee, he would be getting with Lee. Why are they dragging this out for another, what I would consider to be an 11th episode about this fake connection they do not have? They didn't have a connection after the ghosting situation. I thought she was done with him after the ghosting situation. So to still keep trying to connect with him at the cabin doesn't make any sense. Janelle wasn't um stopping them from getting together in that moment. She didn't stop them for having a connection at Lee's own home when her bestie was there. It can't always just be other people are stopping the connection. Nobody's stopping the connection, girl, because there isn't one. Now, y'all know by now, my favorite part of this is hearing and talking and listening to y'all. So don't forget to drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of the video and let me know what you think of the episode. And let's get back into it. So the gang breaks up and Chris comes in and said he wants to borrow his woman and he pulls Lee's hand. This is another fake connection that we do not feel anything from. The only reason Chris is clinging to Lee is because Aries is not interested. Even when they tried to work this scene later on, we don't believe it. Aries came in lighting up to see Phil. She ain't let Phil hand go since they've been there, honey. It's been from pillar to post all trip long. She's not paying attention to Chris whatsoever. It's been her and Bay has been Phil. Chris said he's borrowing her. The couples or people, everybody else goes inside. He stays outside. He says that he wants to give Lee something because he thinks she's an amazing person, and he gives her a pair of flip-flops. They're hot pink. Girl, what was this gift for? It just gave stunt show. It gave, they don't have real chemistry. I don't see Chris for Lee. Again, Lee is a CEO. I don't see this woman being a leader in her company and then having to dim her light so that Chris doesn't feel overmasculine. Like, girl, I don't understand this dynamic. At this point, production is just pulling at anything to try to make us feel a love connection for somebody. I can't imagine if Lee ever speaks above an octave over Chris's voice that it will work out. But we're going to pretend like this is a connection. And it's so weird to me because if Chris is giving you sandals and Quentin hasn't even given you a daisy from the backyard this entire trip, how does this equivocate to you having a connection with Quentin? Production playing in our face, y'all. Okay, so the men appear to be cooking, and I wish we had seen more of this scene. I don't know if they were or not, but they were all in the kitchen kind of conspiring. I don't know who was cooking. I would have also loved to see moments like that, to see who was cooking and all of that. One of the things I really hate with the production this season is they've been leaving so much quality moments out with the different dates, with the different situations. We don't see whose connections were more than other things. We've heard several people online say that their real connections weren't shown. I just feel like we've really been missed out stuff because of production. I would have loved to have seen more of them interacting and who was cooking in the kitchen for whatever, nights and stuff that they were at this thing. I feel like those things would have been fun to see and would have added some lightness to the episode. Anyway, the men are in the kitchen. Women are talking at the table. Maurier asked Jessica, does she mind going to talk? Him and Jessica go to the couch and they have a conversation. He apologized and she lets him know that she hated the way that he labeled her. In that moment, you know what's crazy? Even though this moment was a little bittersweet because of how it ended with them not speaking, when Jessica was explaining herself to him and Maurier was listening and they were having a conversation, it did feel very adult to me. I don't feel like she was being extra angry with him. She was expressing how she felt. Many Black women are expressive with their hands. Many people are expressive with their hands, regardless of race. She wasn't yelling at him. She wasn't being extra combative. She was talking to him in a normal tone, but expressing her frustration with the situation. And he was listening. And this is how you can have an exchange with someone, even if it doesn't go in your favor, in a productive manner. And that's what makes me not really believe that she was super combative with Chris. Because even when they were at the table and she brought him lunch, she was never talking to him in this angry, loud way. And so I find it to be just a really bad adjective that was used to describe the exchanges. And also in this moment, and I know you're going to find me weird for this, I kind of found them to be a little bit cute. When you were looking at them, if you had no conversation, like no idea what their conversation was about, it kind of looked like a woman that was talking to her man about what happened at work and how she don't, she's pissed off about whatever happened at work and he's listening to her saying that. And it looked very kind of husband wifey to me. I'm sorry, of a lover of love. And, I kind of feel like this is how I talk with my guys. So I feel like it was just nice to see them sort of had that exchange. But it does end bittersweet. She says that she's appreciative of the talk. She was disappointed in what he said, and that she felt like she wanted him to have her back a bit more. And that he could have obviously expressed what he said, but maybe not using that verbiage, and it disturbed her. Um, she said that she appreciates the apology, but that, she hates that it went down, and she personally doesn't think that, right now she's good on trying to deal with anything with them. And you can tell that Maria is sad and disappointed. Sometimes with exchanges, it's important to understand that just because you have a sit down with somebody and y'all have a come together, it doesn't mean it's going to end in your favor. Simply because you apologize doesn't mean that the person's still going to say, well, everything is good now, everything is washed over. Sometimes it still hits a bit deep, or they need more healing time, but having the conversation is still important. They then try to have Chris spend time with Aries. Again, I'm not understanding why Chris is spending time with Aries. This lady don't care about this man. She is clearly in to Phil. So, child, they got Aries and Chris out here on this fake date because they still trying to say like Aries has this connection issue between Chris and Phil. I'm sorry, I don't see it, but they are still trying to run this storyline with us. And what we're really focusing on the storyline at this point is not so much about Aries really having this attraction to Chris and ultimately being into him, but more so that Aries is concerned about uh, Phil's lifestyle, and specifically the fact that Phil has had some changes. Chris says that he knows that he can provide Aries with the life that she wants. How many different ways we gonna call Phil broke? And he would be more of a fit for her than Phil. And I'm wondering, at this point, what's going on with this Phil is either broke or just not making as much money as he needs to be making for Aries' lifestyle. And how much is this about Chris constantly leading with his wallet, constantly reminding us that he's a provider? We get it. You're a provider. You're a provider. You not gonna give up. You not gonna miss bills. We get it. We get it. You're a provider. But there needs to be more than that. And what we don't see is the same level of chemistry. Chemistry can't pay the bills, but being in love with somebody or being in a marriage with somebody who can, even though Aries is not broke and works in tech sales, and not having a connection of love is also not attractive, and it will ultimately probably lead to some type of cheating. And then we have Kat and Marie who meet up. I don't understand how in episode 10 we're now trying to fake this connection between the two of them. And you can see that the real reason why they're having this date is because Jessica said that for her right now, she's cool on Marie. So now Marie is clinging to this last hope of situations. When I tell y'all again, Marie, Kat, Chris, Lee, Jessica should have all been gone this episode. They need to do a roundup and leave right out that door with Sierra, because there is no connection with these people, but they're really going to drag us for the another 3 episodes while we have to watch this, including that reunion. I think the reunion will be episode 13. I don't know. I pray that it is. It just gave fake. They have all these things in connection. They have all this stuff. The truth is, Mario don't make enough money for Jessica. He said he gonna become. He wants to move to Mali in 10 years. Not Jessica. He doesn't make enough money for Kat. He said he wants to move to Mali in 10 years. She's like, oh, I'm with that. There's a difference between you liking to travel to countries or wanting to have another home there, which is clearly what Kat's saying, and wanting to live there permanently. They are not in alignment. I don't see no community issues that Kat's going to be taking on that Marie will be interested in, and having a soul sister by his side. When I tell you these two could be so further apart from having any connection, but they're going to really run this game on us. Marie is a Hotep child, and Kat wants to be a kept woman. She wants to be at some point a housewife. That's her goal, I think, because her friend even mentioned to Phil and to Herbert that, hey, what if at some point she has a child and she wants to stay home with the kid? How would you feel about that? And that's not something I think Marie would be into. Not necessarily saying like, hey, you can't raise our kid, but I don't think that he's thinking of that as the woman he wants to be with. I think he wants to be in a power Hotep couple, and I don't think he's going to have that with Kat, but they're going to still pretend in our face. He then gives Kat an amethyst stone. Amethyst is a really beautiful stone. He says that amethyst is an all over positive stone for people to have. It will keep you safe. It keep you serene, all of that good stuff. The stone exchange is cute, but it ain't going to fix the fact that these two don't go together. Janelle and Quentin are meeting up, and they've talked about how they have been connected since the beginning. And, Quentin specifically says, like, she had me since the mixer. I just feel like at this point, let's stop with the multiple dates, because this is when you get people into the Camille mode of things. Because Janelle has been showing up as Camille in these last 2 episodes. And I think it's because when you're playing in the face of people that have a connection and you keep darting other people into the situation, it causes that frustration, because you're dating these people publicly on television with other people. But when they're trying to squeeze people together, which we've now found out offline that a lot of these people just did not have a connection, and they kept trying to put them together in a box to try to just see fireworks happen, see the women fighting with each other or the men having an issue with each other. You're starting to see that production is causing these things. It doesn't take away from the fact that Janelle has to be better about her attitude and how she addresses things and deals with people. But I also understand that all the cast is frustrated with some of the ways in which they keep mashing them together. Because Sierra wanted to leave 4-5 episodes ago. She would have happily exchanged with Red. And yet, and still, they kept asking her to stay to give some life to the show. This season has just been a mess. They start having a conversation. It's clear that these people have chemistry. We really should be doing something where, and hear me out, y'all. What y'all think about the idea of them just doing something where they do an eliminate? And essentially what we're having is something where they eliminate people as they go. So when it's time to, if you feel like you are a couple and y'all tight, it's a good thing. Y'all locked in, y'all can eliminate yourselves as a couple and no longer be on the show when you meet your person and you feel like you got your person. I think it would let this whole thing go a bit smoother and we would have less cattiness amongst the women. Y'all let me know down in the comments how y'all feel about that. And make sure that if OWN even brings this up as a possible dating show or any other network, I get my credit. Quentin asked Janelle about her conflict her conflict resolution style within relationships. And she says that she likes to talk things out. She wants to be very direct and she needs examples. I also don't like this. I definitely need examples in a relationship. Don't just say, oh, I felt this way or what you did was this way. I need examples. Most people need examples to understand, especially if you're highlighting some behavior or you're identifying something that's an issue and you're saying that you've experienced this with me. Quentin says that he wasn't appreciated in his last relationship and he didn't really understand his full love language. And that part of it was words of affirmation and saying, I love you and things like that. And that's really only how you get to those things sometimes is when you haven't received them in a relationship. You realize how important those aspects are to you more than you thought. He asked Janelle, does she have a problem with that? She said when she was younger, she did have problems with expressing her emotions. But that hasn't been a problem as of late, but it is something she dealt with in the past, and I appreciate their honesty. I like this couple. I think that they have genuine chemistry. I think they have genuine connection, similar to Phil and Aries. I just don't see why we're continuing to put some of these couples through the same process. Okay, so this part was definitely really interesting to me in a segment I really enjoyed. I love the chairs. I love the restaurant they were sitting in. And that Thai restaurant did an amazing job. Honey, halfway through this, I was Googling to see about getting those chairs in my living room that they were sitting in. They were absolutely gorgeous. Just the design of the inside of this place was beautiful. Anyway, Phil and Aries are meeting up because Aries wants to talk to Phil about the job stability situation. She knows that they're A1 on the chemistry. He got a thing for her. She got a thing for him. It ain't changing. The connection is strong. But she knows that they're also adults with real bills, real problems, real children involved in their situation. Phil has a kid. Aries has 2. And the reality is that love don't pay the bills. So what is your career stability situation? And that's what she comes to talk about. Chris understands some of her apprehension. I don't think he's had a gang of jobs. I think Phil is somebody who goes with his passion. I don't know that leads him to brokenness. And I think that that's what he was trying to explain. But he currently has had a stable position for many, many years now. Looks like as a supply management, chain management person, like basically a logistics manager job, which can be very lucrative if you work for a corporation, which I believe Phil does. So it's not a low level job. And so he talks to her about the fact that, 4 months ago, he might have not been ready for all of the things that take on this particular load as far as being in a relationship, because she asked him, are you ready for all that comes with this situation? We aren't just us alone. We have children. We have lifestyles that we want to maintain and possibly upgrade. And he said that 4 months ago, it might have not been the case. And what we actually find out, so sad and emotional, is that Chris lost both his father and his stepfather within the last year. And I'm assuming these are men that were very active in his life who he loved. And it hit him real hard. And as somebody who has lost a parent, and specifically their dad, I absolutely understand what he's saying. It doesn't stop you from getting up and going to work, although some people, it do take them down that low. But it definitely is something that can really have an effect on you. And getting into a relationship in a period when you feel like that is absolutely crazy. I love that Phil is like, look, I like my job. I enjoy doing the work, but I don't want my job to define who I am in terms of when I leave my 9 to 5, I leave my 9 to 5. I completely understood where he was going with that. And I hear you, Phil. Don't call me after 5 o'clock unless the place is burning down and I can't return on Monday morning. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, when I'm done with this work. He's like, I want to have fun when I'm not at work. I don't want to talk about work. Like, I love that. And, Aries is dialing in and she's listening to what he has to say. She just wants to make sure that the financial stability is good because she's coming in there with 2 kids. She does make good money, but she also wants to make sure that she maintains her lifestyle and that she's not dealing with somebody who has these ups and down moments of employment, or possibly when they fall into a hard part in their life, then the employment is shaky, because you can't have that. And that will cause a commotion no matter how much chemistry you have in a relationship. So, child, we at the ladies' lounge, and it is clear that there is an alliance between these set of women. Jessica and Janelle is on one side, Aries and Lee and Kat are on the other side. Although they have Kat and Janelle seated next to each other. When I tell you production is messy, because y'all know them girls don't mess with each other. The ladies are sitting down. They start having a conversation about the talk of the weekend and what's going on. Tommy asks all the ladies who are they currently feeling. And Aries says her and Phil are locked in. They're good. She just has some feelings around stability. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Janelle and Quentin, she says that her and Quentin have a great connection. It's been like that since the beginning. They flash to Lee. Again, production being messy. Y'all know that Quentin and Lee don't really have a connection. They're going to try to force this down our throat. We even see in the next trailer up that they're going to try to make it seem like they have a connection. Like, why hold on to this? Why keep pushing this narrative? And Lee seems frustrated. She said that she doesn't know about connection with Quentin because he wasn't really given the freedom to be around her for the weekend. Girl, even if he was, it still wasn't going to happen. Why aren't you overly focused on Chris and them flip-flops? Chris and her, she said, have a connection. He gave her a gift of shoes, and there could possibly be something going there. Jessica says her and Morier are good. So I'm thinking that by the time they had the lounge, she must have spoken to Morier, because they do talk every day. They mentioned that since the very beginning of the show. It's not weird for us to think that. It's not like they went from the reunion to the ladies' lounge in the next hour. From the getaway to the ladies' lounge. So it's probably clear that they have talked since then and worked through whatever it was. She never said that she was done with him. She did say she was over the situation in terms of like she was cool on him. Cool on you means I need some days to reconsider this situation. But I do think that she's locked in with Morier. Kat says that she's locked in with Morier, and 3 days before the end of the season. Kat also says that she has a connection with Chris. I've seen nothing of this. And again, it's production keeping this girl here because they know that she doesn't get along with these 2 women. So I'm going to be involved in this situation. Why y'all putting Janelle and Kat on the same couch? What if they had broke out into a fight? Then, because both of them are messy. Then you have Kat knowing that she really doesn't have a connection with with Morier, but she's going to be the alternative because why is Morier still on the show? If him and Jessica don't work out, he need to go too. He don't have no connection with Kat. He too broke for her. And then you have Kat saying that she has a connection with Chris. We've seen no connection with Chris with Kat at all. That's how you know that this is an alliance. Now Chris stays on the show. If him and Lee don't work out, Chris would still stay because him and Aries don't have anything. So why all of a sudden does Kat now have this connection with Chris that we've never seen blossom into anything? So she wasn't at the dinner with Jessica, so it's not making any sense. The women go back and forth. I'm as bored as Tommy is. They go back and forth to defend themselves. Jessica said they go around to ask about elimination. Jessica says that Chris has, huge character flaws that she's seen. I've been saying he has red flags since his ex, but people are kind of pretend that he does not. She goes in to say that Chris, basically lied about something that she knows he said. The three women that are in an alliance go around and say that he said he didn't say that. The problem is them vehemently defending on that. Chris lied to them as well because he did say it. We saw it on camera. He actually did say it. He lied in front of them. He lied to them if he then went and told them. And Tommy co-signs that Jessica's right. He was a coward for not stepping up and saying he was the one that said it. Then they backtrack and go, and specifically Aries backtracks and goes, well, even if he did say it, Marie is the one that said it again. And why did he use that verbiage? So it should be on him. No, girl, it should be on the person that said it. Stand up in your own too and say that you're the one that said it. And Tommy completely understood that. That's when you know that this alliance with Jessica and Janelle and this alliance with Kat, Aries, and Lee it's exhaustive at this moment. And, Tommy's exhausted as well. They decide that they have to deliberate. Ultimately, the deliberation comes down to Chris and Morier. They have Morier meet with Aries, and they have Chris and Jessica meet. Now, we knew when Morier met with Aries, he knew that he didn't know what was going to happen because him and Aries don't have a connection. So she would be the person that would probably end up eliminating him. And Chris and Jessica, why did y'all put these two people together when y'all know they don't get along? So the powder keg. Essentially, Aries has this conversation with Morier about how the women feel like he's in the friend zone. He needs to come out of the friend zone. We are on episode 10. At this point, if you have not gotten out the friend zone, he should have been gone like Sierra. Several people should have been gone by now anyway. And so she tells him that he is ready to love. On the other side of things, Chris walks in. He sees it as Jessica. He smiles. Jessica's like, look, they know we don't have a connection, but they didn't put us back here again at this lady wine bar to make a mess. And Chris is meeting with her. She tells Chris, hey, I think by now we both know that me and you don't have a connection. But the other women feel like, there are some things. She mentions the combative issue. Chris gets upset because he feels like, well, I only said this to you. He's owning up to the fact that he really only described it with her and they have the issue. Chris gets emotional. And exactly what I knew would happen would happen. I'm just going to say this about the Chris situation and let's please move on. I felt like from the time that we met Chris's ex, and even really at that lunch, Chris gave me full Derek Jackson energy. I don't watch all of the stuff that goes on offline, but I see it in pieces. I see it through, awesome vloggers on these channels that have been keeping us with the tea, like Chloe and others. And I just have to say this regarding the Chris situation. Anytime, and I saw somebody say this online, so let me not take full credit for it. It wasn't on any of the vloggers. I saw it like on a blog or something like that. But somebody made a great point and said that anytime that you have to spend this much time running around trying to go from podcast to podcast to podcast, because the man has been on like 4 or 5 shows and been on lives on his own channel trying to explain yourself as a good guy, you're not a good guy. It doesn't mean that you're a bad guy. It just means that you're not the good guy you're portraying yourself to be. I feel like I see a lot of women, not every woman, but a lot of women who are apologists for men's behavior like this. When Chris yelled at Jessica in this moment and he told her, you don't know shit about me, and is yelling at her, that's who he really is. And everybody kept trying to apologize away the situation as frustration. And I heard that he had an interview where he also had a conversation and he never really gave an explanation other than say that he was overwhelmed. I see a lot of women online being apologists for men like this. This is his real behavior. This is who he really is. She didn't overwhelm him. This lady was having a normal conversation with this man and he got lit for no reason. It was unnecessary. I heard that also he flipped his chair backwards or kicked his chair backwards and it flipped behind him when he got up because he was so upset. He was the one getting super emotional, disproving his initial theory that women become the ultimate emotional ones in business or in any other situation and they can't control themselves. Like I've been saying from the beginning, Chris needs therapy. He needs to work over the trauma of not having his mother in his life and looking for that in other women. That's why he wants a woman that's overly nurturing, not feminine, because as I've been saying from the beginning, women are not cosplaying at femininity. When we feel safe, when we feel secure in our relationships, when a man is asserting himself in his masculinity, we will naturally fall into place. But when you are trying to dominate us every step of the way, when you are trying to be the competition at home with your wife, when your only quality is being a producer of things, but not being emotionally together and mature, then that is where the struggle will ensue. When you're trying to constantly dim our light or take every energy from us, i.e., servitude, when you're trying to not build into us, but only want to be built into, that is when you're not going to get the thing that you're seeking out. He has a lot of issues to work through that don't involve any of these women because he did not grow up with his mother. And women who are trying to apologize away the work that he needs to do and the shadow work that he needs to do to become a fuller man, to be a husband to somebody and not waste years of that person's life like he did with his ex, are shocking to me. Wasn't shocked by Chris's behavior, wasn't shocked by this exchange. I'm not shocked with his Derek Jackson tour of I'm a good guy that's been going on online, because I knew that this person would always come out because he exists in multiple fashions in all types of men. Like I said, Chris was eliminated. He got emotional with that elimination and stormed out after disrespecting and screaming at Jessica and cursing at her. At the end of the day, he needed to go. Jessica needs to go. Lee needs to go. Kat needs to go. And Marie needs to go. And we need to stop playing in his face and just head up to this reunion. Tell me what y'all think in the comments about this episode, about where this series is going. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.